Urgent update from the American West. Death Valley, California is forecast to hit 126 degrees Fahrenheit. Billings, Montana just broke its all-time hottest temperature ever recorded, then broke it again 2 weeks later. And by this Monday, roughly 1 in every 10 people in the continental United States will be living through the single hottest day of the entire year so far. This is not a normal summer heat wave. This is a record-challenging heat dome, and meteorologists are warning it is only getting started. In this report, we look at the data behind why this heat dome is behaving differently than a typical summer scorcher, the growing scientific debate over whether these domes are becoming dangerously stuck in place, and the strategic vulnerabilities this kind of extreme heat exposes across America's power grid, water supply, and emergency response systems. Stay with us. To understand why this particular heat dome matters, you need to understand what a heat dome actually is. It's a large area of high atmospheric pressure that parks itself over a region and essentially acts like a lid, trapping hot air underneath it, suppressing cloud formation, and compressing the air below into even higher temperatures. Heat domes are not new. The American West has dealt with them for decades, typically arriving in July or August, pushing temperatures into the triple digits for a few days before shifting on. Here's the contrast that makes this event different. This heat dome isn't just hot. It's historically hot, and it's hitting an unusually wide stretch of geography all at once, from Southern California's deserts all the way north into Montana and the Northern Rockies. Salt Lake City is forecast to reach 104 degrees, approaching its August record, and this comes on the heels of the city already breaking its all-time record high earlier this same month. Billings, Montana, a city that isn't typically associated with extreme desert-level heat, is forecast to hit 106 degrees on Saturday, breaking its August record outright just 2 weeks after recording its hottest temperature ever measured, 111 degrees. When a single city breaks its all-time heat record and then approaches a seasonal record again within the same month, that's not a normal pattern. That's the signature of a heat regime that refuses to let go. Let's get into the actual data, because the numbers here are what separate this from an ordinary hot spell. According to the National Weather Service, high temperatures across the West are running 10 to nearly 20 degrees hotter than they should be for the peak of summer. From Southern California to the Northern Rockies and Plains, a deviation running from Friday through Tuesday of this week. Forecasters project that by August 4th, roughly 10% of the entire continental United States will record its hottest day of the year so far, all concentrated under this single dome. Our analysis of the National Weather Service's regional outlooks shows the dome is not weakening as it moves. Forecasters are explicitly warning that the weekend heat may only be the first wave, with another surge of extreme temperatures expected to build back in starting around August 6th, meaning this isn't a short, sharp spike followed by relief. It's a sustained multi-phase heat event. Critical to extremely critical fire weather conditions have already been flagged by the National Weather Service for the Northwest. A northern Great Basin heading into the weekend, meaning the danger here isn't just measured in degrees on a thermometer. It's measured in how fast already dry vegetation can ignite and spread once a single spark hits it. Death Valley's forecast of 126 degrees deserves specific attention because that number sits remarkably close to some of the highest reliably recorded temperatures on the entire planet. And this isn't an isolated desert reading disconnected from the rest of the region. California's interior is expected to see highs of 100 to 110 degrees across a broad swath of the state, meaning Death Valley's extreme number is the peak of a much wider, sustained heat mass sitting over the entire American Southwest simultaneously. Most coverage of this heat wave stops at the forecast numbers. But there's a problem, one that a smaller group of climate researchers has been raising with increasing urgency, and it changes how we should think about events like this going forward. Particularly strong, slow-moving heat domes may be becoming more common as the planet warms. This is still described by scientists as an active area of research, not a settled conclusion, but the mechanism behind it is genuinely unsettling. Some researchers point to a weakening, more erratic jet stream, the high-altitude river of air that normally pushes weather systems along. As a possible reason these domes are increasingly getting stuck in place rather than moving through a region in a few days. A heat dome that lingers for a week does dramatically more damage than one that passes through in 48 hours, not because it's necessarily hotter at its peak, but because it gives the ground, the vegetation, and the region's infrastructure no time to recover between punishing days. Here's the twist that connects this heat wave to something bigger than a single week's forecast. Human-caused climate change is already established, according to multiple published studies, as making heat waves like this one more likely to occur, more intense once they arrive, and longer lasting once they settle in. If the slow-moving, stuck-in-place behavior of this particular dome turns out to be part of that same broader pattern, it means the American West isn't just facing one unusually bad week. It's facing a preview of how future heat events may increasingly behave, hitting harder and refusing to leave on the timeline we've historically expected. Let's connect this to the bigger picture. Extreme sustained heat domes like this one aren't just a public health story, they're a direct stress test on national infrastructure. Power grids across the West face their highest demand of the year exactly during events like this, as air conditioning use spikes simultaneously across an enormous geographic footprint, straining transmission systems that were largely engineered for a cooler historical climate baseline. When critical to extremely critical fire weather conditions overlap with a heat dome this intense, as the National Weather Service is currently forecasting for the Northwest, that combination creates a direct threat to the same power infrastructure the region depends on to survive the heat in the first place, since downed power lines are a leading cause of the exact wildfires these conditions are primed to produce. There's a broader strategic dimension here too. Heat domes of this scale and duration place direct pressure on water resources across a region already managing long-term drought stress, particularly around the Colorado River Basin that supplies water to tens of millions of people across multiple states. Emergency services, cooling centers, and homeless shelters like the Montana Rescue Mission, opening its doors early to give people relief from the heat, are being stretched during a period that increasingly looks less like a single anomalous week and more like a preview of a recurring seasonal challenge. As these events become more frequent and more intense, the strategic question shifts from simply forecasting the next heat wave to fundamentally hardening infrastructure, grid capacity, water storage, and emergency response systems against a version of summer that regularly behaves like this one. Let's recap what we know. A record-challenging heat dome is currently gripping the American West, pushing Death Valley toward 126 degrees, and forcing cities like Salt Lake City and Billings to approach or break all-time temperature records within the same month. This isn't a short-lived spike. Forecasters expect this pattern to intensify again starting around August 6th, and a growing body of research suggests slow-moving, stubborn heat domes like this one may become a more regular feature of our summers going forward, not a rare exception. If these heat domes really are becoming stuck in place more often, are our power grids, our water systems, and our emergency services actually ready for a future where events like this aren't the exception, but the new baseline? We want to hear your theories in the comments below. This has been the Geostrategy Report. Stay informed.